Late at night, reporter Melvin is visited by Doherty, an employee from the pharmaceutical company BTH. It turns out they've been causing lots of waste contamination, which has triggered mutations in animals and possibly health problems in the local population. Melvin and Doherty plan to expose the company's crimes. At that moment they see on the security cameras that the building has been surrounded by the Killer Nuts, a violent gang and popular band paid by BTH. Melvin makes Doherty run away before yelling at the Nuts to keep their attention on him. Unfortunately, Doherty finds the stairs blocked by the thugs, so she has to jump over the railing to escape. The memory drive with all the intel she stole from the company breaks as she lands. In the office, the Nuts break in and shoot Melvin a few times. He still manages to stand up, so they shoot him again. Melvin still keeps moving, so this time they shoot a trident at him, which sends him flying through the window. Outside, Doherty sees Melvin die as he lands and she runs away. In the morning, Winston wakes up for another day of work. Since his wife died, he's been in charge of taking care of his stepson Wade, but their relationship isn't close. When they leave the house, Winston sees that Spence is harassing his neighbor Daisy because he wants her to sell her property. He keeps making threatening comments until she agrees. Spence promises to come back later with the papers, and before leaving, he throws Daisy's cat in the middle of the street. Winston immediately runs to rescue the kitty, almost getting hit by a car in the process. Wade walks away and Winston follows him to make sure he's fine. The kid snaps at him, complaining because Winston didn't defend Daisy. Winston has to explain that sometimes there's nothing they can do. Afterward, Winston goes to the BTH factory, where he works as a janitor. Alarms are often ringing and he can hear people screaming, but he stays out of it. After his shift is over, Winston goes to the doctor for his test results. Unfortunately, he's got an aggressive brain tumor, which means he only has 1 year left to live. Surgery is impossible at this stage and the only medical treatment is incredibly expensive. Winston calls his insurance company and is devastated to learn they won't cover this kind of treatment even though he has the platinum plan. Meanwhile, the owner of BTH, Robert, is furious because the company's stocks are plunging. There's a lot of talk about his illegal deals with gangsters and the dumping of toxic sludge. His brother Fritz is the head of security and manages the Killer Nuts. Robert breaks the TV in fury when he hears that they failed to kill Doherty and tells Fritz to fix it immediately. Afterward, Fritz interrupts the band's rehearsal and sends them after Doherty. The thugs go to her house and break everything inside trying to find her, to no avail. Doherty is across the street and waits until they're gone to go home. His roommate yells at her since the thugs almost attacked him too, but Doherty only has eyes for the fake panel on the floor. Thankfully, her bag is still hidden there, so she takes it and announces she isn't coming back. At school, Wade tries to audition for the upcoming talent show, but he gets too nervous and leaves the stage. The video appears online and everyone makes fun of him. At home, Winston tries to cheer Wade up by putting on a tutu to dance with him, but the boy isn't amused. Wade notices a medical file on the table, but Winston takes it away before he can read it. Afterward, Winston throws the file in the trash and goes out for a drink. At a special event, Robert is scolded by various business partners including the mayor. Suddenly, Spence drags Robert to a private table to talk to his father Thad, a powerful mobster. Thad yells at Robert because he lent BTH money and he hasn't seen payments in a while. Later, Robert receives an award and ignores his problems to brag instead. At that moment, Winston sneaks in and approaches Robert, explaining he's worked for him for 13 years and never caused trouble, so he deserves better insurance. Robert claims to be sympathetic and tells his assistant Kissy to take care of it. Kissy takes Winston outside promising to discuss things, but she locks the door in his face and leaves. Winston can hear her and Robert mocking him. A furious Winston goes to BTH, where Doherty is watching from the shadows. When she sees the door opening for him, she uses the chance to sneak in. She triggers a security breach alert and Fritz immediately calls the Nuts to take care of it. While Doherty uses some tools to try to get a sample of the harmful waste, Winston dips his mop in radioactive sludge and then uses it to threaten the night guard, forcing him to put all the company money in a bag. On his way out, Winston accidentally bumps into Doherty and her sample falls on the money bag, which instantly sets it on fire. The Nuts appear behind them, so Doherty picks up Winston's ID and they both start running. The road is blocked by a fence that Doherty easily jumps over and she tries to help Winston do the same, but he doesn't move quickly enough. Since the Nuts are getting closer, she has no choice but to leave. The thugs surround Winston and shoot him in the face. Fritz notices the mistake and screams at them before telling them to clean up. Winston's body and his mop are dropped into a pool of radioactive waste to get rid of the evidence while Doherty watches from afar. The radioactive waste enters Winston's body and revives him, but also completely mutates him. When he comes out of the pool, he's a deformed green creature, so he screams in horror. Then he tries to go home and finds Daisy signing the property papers for Spence. Not wanting to be seen, Winston takes the fire escape to get to his apartment window. Wade is calling 911 because his stepfather has disappeared. When he sees the monster at the window, he panics and throws an object at his face, causing Winston to fall and land on top of Spence's car. Hearing the alarm, Spence checks on his car and is horrified to see Winston, so he opens fire. However, Winston's new body simply pushes out the bullet and the wound heals. A furious Winston grabs Spence's arm and rips it off as people on the street start to record him on their phones. Winston quickly runs away and Daisy uses the chance to get her papers back from Spence. When the police arrive, the crowd describes Winston in all kinds of exaggerated ways, calling him things like fiend and demon. The cop shoots his gun in the air and announces that they're starting a mob. The crazy crowd chases after Winston with torches, forcing him to hide in the forest where he passes out. The next morning, Winston wakes up in a camp belonging to a hobo named Guthrie, who is not scared of him. Guthrie has the mop and gives it back to Winston, saying that it must be used responsibly. Meanwhile, Wade is watching TV and discovers that the authorities are looking for the monster he saw, so he calls the station to share information. At a fast food joint, a right-wing supremacist group called the Nasty Lads has taken over the building and is holding the clients hostage to protest over the name change. The restaurant used to be called Mr. Meat and they changed it to Miss Meat. When a detective tries to reason with the leader, the guy just opens fire. Winston is sneaking back into town and sees all the chaos. A blind client insults the lads and throws her drink at the leader. When he's about to shoot her, Winston breaks in through the back door and hits the leader with the mop, causing him to lose half of his face. He then starts attacking all the lads, killing them one by one and even tearing a guy's intestines out through his rear. After a very gory fight, all the hostages are allowed to go out. The police get ready to shoot when they see Winston, but the hostages defend him, saying he was their hero. A reporter immediately asks him some questions for the camera and Wade recognizes Winston's voice. Space also sees him on TV and identifies him as the guy who hurt him, so Thad sends his men after him. Winston is now adored by everyone and people even take selfies with him. Later, when he stops to relieve himself, he discovers that his pee is acidic. The media starts speculating if BTH caused the man's transformation. They also start calling him the Toxic Eventer or just Toxie. Robert is angry at Kissy and Fritz because they let Doherty escape and thinks Winston was working with her. He's also not happy about the media attention on the new hero, but a closer look makes him notice that the mutated creature and the janitor are the same man because they're wearing the same tutu. Realizing that his own chemical pool caused this, Robert asks his scientists for an explanation. They tell him the mutation was caused by mixing their toxic waste with an extremely rare genetic marker. Robert wants them to recreate this mutation, but they'll need to capture Winston first. In the meantime, Doherty goes to Winston's apartment and Wade lets her in after seeing his stepfather's ID. Doherty tells him what happened that night at the factory and shares that her mother died because she was exposed to the toxic waste. Suddenly, the killer nuts burst into the apartment, so Doherty helps Wade escape by climbing out the window. A thug manages to shoot at Wade just in time to put a tracker on his leg. On the street, the duo bumps into Winston, who finally tells Wade about his cancer. The conversation is interrupted by Thad's men shooting Winston down. Doherty drags Wade away while Winston recovers and kills his attacker with the mop before running away. In the woods, Wade hears a beeping noise and they finally see the tracker. The nuts arrive and shoot Doherty down before capturing the boy. Back to Winston, he hides in an abandoned building and checks on his wounds. The bullets are already out, but the holes haven't closed yet. The rest of Thad's men are coming for him, so he takes cover in a pile of trash bags and attacks the first thug by surprise. Then he uses the body as a puppet to get the attention of another thug to kill him too. Lastly, he jumps on the thug's car and rips the driver's head off, running over it when he drives away. Afterward, Winston finds Doherty and takes her to the hobo camp. Guthrie mentioned he was a doctor before losing anything but does nothing to help. Winston has no choice but to pour his blood into Doherty's wound to heal her. When she wakes up, she agrees to team up with Winston. In the nuts van, Fritz asks Wade not to be scared because he only wants Winston. Wade gets angry and says that at least Winston loves him, finally calling him dad. He thinks Fritz doesn't have anyone who loves him that much, which makes Fritz very upset. Meanwhile, a furious Thad calls Robert to complain about Winston since he blames BTH for his existence. Thad wants to punish Robert, who sees Fritz arrive with Wade and assures Thad he has everything under control. Sometime later, the killer nuts are putting on a show. Doherty disconnects the band's microphone to replace it with Winston's, who walks through the crowd while singing the band's most popular song. He makes his way to the stage while the crowd cheers for him, even showing him their private parts. The singer gets angry because the crowd likes Winston more and shoots him, only for Winston to rip the top of his head off with his mop. The crowd runs away in panic while the band goes after Winston for revenge. He dodges an attack from a man who falls off the stage and instantly dies. Then Winston throws the mop, which goes through another musician's head and lands on the mixer table, killing the DJ by electrocuting her. The guitarist is brought down with a few blows and Winston rips off his beard to force him to eat it. The crowd stares in shock and thinks that their hero may be a monster after all, so Winston tells them the truth about the band and BTH. The last band member tries to run away, so Doherty hits him with a wooden plank. Winston asks him about Wade while removing the guy's mask, only to find a tiny head. At least the squeaky voice tells him where to find his son. Moments later, the duo arrives at Robert's mansion and Winston pulls out his eye to check out the area, learning that there are 2 guards. Doherty tries to flirt with them and the guards are so nervous by the presence of a woman that they accidentally shoot each other. Trapped in the garden shed, Wade sees Winston coming and tries to warn him of the danger, but it's too late. A Robert statue blows sleeping gas at the duo. When they wake up, they find themselves chained in the lab. The scientists take a sample of Winston's blood and try to make a serum for Robert, but it doesn't go well. Robert forces them to repeat the experiment until it's successful, so Winston is put through several painful extractions. Eventually the scientists manage to make a serum that is in the right range of mitogenics, but there's a catch. Robert refuses to hear it and takes the bottle away. At that moment Thad arrives with his men and puts on the news. Winston's outburst at the concert is all over the media and the mayor announces she won't support BTH anymore. Thad is ready to punish Robert for not handling the issue as promised, so Robert decides to drink the serum. At first his transformation is visually not extreme, but he's still faster and stronger, so he manages to kill Thad and his men in just a few seconds in the most savage ways. When Kissy comes looking for him, the transformation is finished and now he looks more monster-like. Kissy wants to drink the serum too, but there are only a few drops left. Soon Robert starts feeling sick and the scientists point out that the serum wasn't ready. Kissy yells at them, demanding a fix. She also wants the guards to kill all their hostages including Wade. Fritz is horrified to hear this, and when Kissy turns around, he discovers she's been slightly affected by the serum too. He doesn't want to kill an innocent child and tries to block the guards, saying that this monster isn't Robert anymore. A furious Kissy kicks him in the groin and starts beating him up with a metal rod. In the cell, Doherty overhears that Wade will be killed and convinces Winston to fight. Sadly he fails to break the chains no matter how much he pulls. Then he remembers his acidic pee, so he opens his pants and relieves himself to free both of them. While Doherty steals a computer to get the proof she needs, Winston punches the door to bring it down and retrieves his mop. Outside 2 guards are approaching the shed, so Winston yells to get their attention and throws a rock at a man's face, instantly killing him. The other guard opens fire and a bullet accidentally hits a gas tank, causing a huge explosion that blows up the shed. The shockwave throws Winston back and he screams in despair, thinking Wade is dead. Then Robert shows up with an axe and starts fighting Winston. They exchange blows until their weapons get stuck and the radioactive mop starts cutting through the axe, so Robert disarms Winston and tries to decapitate him. The attack fails because of the toxic damage on the axe. Winston retrieves the mop and burns Robert's face, causing him to start running. A chase ensues and the men roll down the hill. Meanwhile Doherty returns to the car, but Kissy surprises her from behind and tries to choke her with chains. After some struggle Kissy drops Doherty, who immediately comes back to fight her properly. Kissy gets distracted when she sees Robert and Winston fighting nearby, so Doherty hits her in the head with a toilet to finally bring her down. At the same time Robert knocks down Winston, but when he's about to kill him, Doherty hits him with the toilet too. Refusing to give up, Robert slashes a container of toxic waste. Winston breaks his axe and tackles him to repeatedly punch him in the face. Then he grabs him by the neck to start choking him, but he's interrupted by Wade appearing and calling him dad. It turns out Fritz used a hidden tunnel to save the boy. Robert takes the chance to attack again, so Winston uses his mop to throw him on top of the car. His head goes through the hood and Doherty starts the engine to shred him. Afterward Winston tries to reunite with Wade, only for Kissy to stab him from behind. When Fritz tries to stop her, his throat gets slashed as well. Winston tackles Kissy and they fall on the spilled waste, causing a big explosion that kills her. Sometime later Winston wakes up in the hospital. The blind woman from the burger joint incident is there, revealing she's a special agent. She turns on the TV and they watch the news, which confirms that Doherty's done a data dump that has exposed the BTH conspiracy. Even the mayor and some cops are involved. The agent explains she's been after BTH for years, and she's so thankful for Winston's help that he won't be arrested for his crimes. The doctor then informs him that his mutations have cured his cancer. When Winston leaves the hospital, Daisy and a crowd are waiting to thank him for saving the city. Even Wade hugs him for the first time. Doherty says goodbye to him from afar. In another room, Fritz is being guarded by a cop, and Kissy wakes up. When it's time for the school talent show, Wade is finally brave enough to perform, and Winston proudly supports him from the back. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.